Hello people, how are you? What's up? I hope you all are doing very amazing. So people, a lot of friends have commented on my YouTube video, sir, please start with FEMA laws. And people, here I am. And let me tell you, we have already begun with our FEMA laws and we are done with two very simple sub chapters. Number one is salient features of FEMA and number two is a liberalized remittance scheme. Now people, in the next two lectures, we're going to completely be thorough with our two remaining sub chapters. Number one is FDI and number two is ECB. These two sub chapters, students often find it very difficult to study and they end up skipping these two sub chapters because it is difficult. The students believe this. People, trust me. Once you are done with the next two lectures, this is my promise that you will fall in love with FEMA laws. It is very interesting, very practical, super easy sub chapters. The problem is a lot of technical details have been included in a chapter without covering the foundation. So people, in these two lectures will be thorough with the two sub chapters that you people often find it difficult to study. Okay, this is my promise. So people, without wasting any time, let's get started with the next sub chapter, and that is foreign direct investment. People, this lecture will be of 1 hour to 1.5 hours. In this lecture, we are only going to complete with FDI. In the next lecture, we are going to completely be thorough with ECB. Okay, chalo people. So let's get started. Now, what all topics we have to cover in this lecture? So people, number one is important provisions with respect to foreign investment in India. People, over here we're going to understand. People, just one second. Yes. So people, number one is important provisions with respect to foreign investment in India. In this, we're going to understand what is the meaning of FDI, what is the meaning of FPI, what is the meaning of depository receipts, everything we're going to understand. Number two is we're going to understand the difference between FDI and FPI. Okay. Number three, people, in what all ways can we hold foreign investment, we're going to understand. Okay. After that, this is very interesting. This is very interesting. Prohibited sectors for foreign investment. Which are those sectors where foreign investment is completely prohibited and why? And then people, they will understand the capital instruments in the context of FDI. If a foreign investor wants to invest into capital instruments, how can he invest? We're going to understand. Then people, what is the meaning of sectoral caps in foreign investment? The meaning is, if you are investing in a particular sector, you have to bring in certain amount of capital to show that you are genuinely serious about this sector. Okay. Then people, we're going to understand the permitted investments by person resident outside India. If a person resident outside India wants to invest, in what all ways can he invest? We're going to understand. Then people, these three topics are extremely easy. That is bonus issue, right issue, sweat equity shares, ESOP, and then merger, demerger, amalgamation. Very easy. Amalgamation. Okay. Then people, the next three topics are miscellaneous. Very easy. Calculation of foreign investment in Indian companies. How are you going to calculate? If an Indian company has invested into a subsidiary company, but then Indian company is already holding foreign investment, will that be calculated towards the investment in the subsidiary company? Yes or no? We are going to understand. And then people, conditions for exit for foreign investment in India. If, let's say, Tata Starbucks, okay, Tata is an Indian company, Starbucks is a foreign company. If Starbucks wants to exit this investment, how can Starbucks exit? We're going to understand. And then people, last is FEMA compliance requirements. The meaning is, if an Indian company has received money from the foreign investor, what are the compliance requirements they have to go through? We're going to understand. Once we are done with these 13 topics, people, we are thorough with the sub chapter of FDI. Trust me, you will fall in love with this sub chapter. This is my promise. Okay? Sure, people. So, people, let's get started with our first topic, and that is the key provisions of foreign investment in India. Okay. So, over here, people, we're going to understand the meaning of FDI, we're going to understand the meaning of FPI, we're also going to understand the meaning of depository receipts. Beautiful concepts. So, what is the meaning of FDI? FDI in India is defined as an investment made by whom people, by a person resident outside India, is investing in an unlisted Indian company. If a person resident outside India is investing into an unlisted Indian company, there is no limit. It will be considered as FDI. But the moment he invests 10% or more in an listed Indian company, it will be considered as FDI. Let's read this. 10% or more of the post-issue paid-up capital. Over here, people, equity, preferences, debentures, bonds, every single thing will be taken into consideration on a fully diluted basis of a listed Indian company. So basically, if it is an unlisted Indian company, there is no limit. If it is a listed Indian company, there is a limit of 10% or more of the post-issue paid-up capital. Yes or no, people? Now comes a very, very important word, and that is, what is the meaning of fully diluted basis? Which means what, people? All the possible ways of issuing capital, everything will be taken into consideration to be considered as FDI. I'll give you an example. A Japanese investor invests 12% of shares in TVS Motors. Now TVS Motors is a listed Indian company. It will be considered as FDI. If I invest 3% in Swiggy, Swiggy is an unlisted Indian company. There is no limit of 10%. It will still be considered as FDI. Very easy, people. Okay. Now, if a foreign investor's shareholding in a listed Indian company falls below 10% of the investment, it will still be treated as FDI, because the moment you have touched the threshold of FDI, you will be throughout the time considered as FDI. The investment that you have made will be throughout the time will be considered as FDI. The moment you have touched the threshold, no matter if you sell the shares, if you hold the shares, it will be considered as FDI. I'll give you an example. So, a Japanese investor buys 12% shares in TVS Motors. TVS Motors is a listed Indian company. It will be considered as FDI. Now, the moment he sells 7% of shares, now right now how much shares is holding? 5% shares. Still, it will be considered as FDI. Very easy, people. So, again I will tell you, summarize. If it's an unlisted Indian company, there is no limit. It will be considered as FDI. If it's a listed, 10% limit will be applicable on fully diluted basis, which means what? All the possible ways of issuing capital will be taken into consideration, be it preference shares, be it equity shares, be it debentures, be it bonds. Now, the moment your threshold falls below 10%, still it will be considered as FDI. Very easy. Chalo. Now let's move on to the next topic, and that is FPI. Now, what is the meaning of FPI? Foreign portfolio investment refers to any investment made by a person resident outside India in capital instruments of a listed Indian company. So over here, if I want to consider my investment as FPI, it should be a listed Indian company. It should not be unlisted Indian company like FDI. Okay, where the investment is less than 10% of the post-issue paid-up equity capital on a fully diluted basis. Which means what? If I am investing into a listed Indian company, my shareholding should be less than 10%. Yes or no? And less than 10% of post paid up value of each series of capital instruments in a listed Indian company. Which means what, people? Not just equity shares I'm talking about. All the possible ways of issuing capital, all the capital should be less than 10%. I'll give you an example. So, what is the meaning of fully diluted basis? Listed company XYZ Limited. Equity shares, preference shares, warrants. How many equity shares are there? 1 CR equity shares are there. How many preference shares are there? 10 lakh preference shares are there. How many share warrants are there? 5 lakh share warrants are there. So if you want to call it as fully diluted basis, 1 CR plus 10 lakh plus 5 lakh, so we can say that 1.15 CR shares are there on a fully diluted basis. Yes or no, people? Now, I'll give you an example. Case A, case B. When will we call it as FPI? When will we call it as FDI? So people, a US investor buys 8 lakh equity shares, 8%, is it FDI? No. Number 2, 60,000 preference shares, 6%, is it FDI? No. 30,000 share warrants comprising of 6%. Every single capital instrument is less than 10%, so it will be considered as FPI, foreign portfolio investment. Now, let's come to case B. 7% total equity shares, no problem. But the moment you have touched more than 10%, you will be considered as FDI. Very easy, people. Extremely easy. Chalo. Now let's move on to the next topic. Now, what all are the possible ways where you, if you are a person resident outside India, can hold foreign investment? Number 1, people, we know it is FDI. Number 2 is it is FPI. And number 3 is investment in Indian securities issued abroad. Now, what is the meaning of this? Investment in securities such as depository receipts issued abroad is classified as FDI or FPI based on the same 10% threshold. Now, what is the meaning of depository receipts? It's a note sold in another country that represents the shares of Indian company, and the shares are not going out of India. Shares are in India. But I'll give you one example. Let's say this is the share of Reliance. Now, Bill Gates wants to buy the shares of Reliance. Now, the problem is I cannot give these shares out of India. I cannot transfer these shares out of India, but I can give a deposited receipts that represents the Reliance shares out of India, where Bill Gates can buy and sell and trade in the depository receipts. Now, people tell me, is the Reliance shares going out of India? No. Reliance shares are safely kept in India, but only the depository receipts, only the note is going out of India. Now, note, does it contain equity shares? No, it is representing the equity shares. Yes or no, people? So, are the equity shares going out of India? No, equity shares are in India. Only the note that represents the equity shares are going out of India, and that is what we call it as depository receipts. Very easy, people. That's it. So, until now, we have understood 3 ways of holding foreign investment. Number 1 is FDI. Number 2 is FPI. Number 3 is depository receipts. And number 4 is very, very interesting, and that is investment vehicles. Now, what is meaning of investment vehicle? People, it's basically a company or a fund that collects money from the investors and then they invest into different areas. Now, let's understand what are the types of investment vehicles. So, investment vehicle is an entity registered and regulated under SEBI regulations or any other designated authority. Recognized investment vehicles include 3 types: real estate investment trust, infrastructure investment trust, alternative investment funds. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of a real estate investment trust? That means what, people? I will give you an example. Let's say a company which has taken investment from a lot of investors. Now, with this money, they have bought a very, very big building. They have given this building on a rent to a Infosys like company. Now, whatever rent I will receive, I will give it as investment returns to my investors, which means what? The money that I have collected from my investors, I have invested into real estate properties. Yes or no, people? And that is what we call it as a real estate investment trust. Very easy. Now, the important question is, what is the meaning of infrastructure investment trust? Same thing. I will take money from my investors. I will invest. I will buy highways. I will buy power lines. I will buy roads. Okay. So, whatever money I collect using tolls, I will pay as investment returns to my investors. Very easy, people. Okay. Now, next is, what is the meaning of alternative investment funds? People, You tell me what is a normal way of investing. It is FD and all. Now, alternative ways of investing is investing into stock markets, investing into mutual funds, investing into commodities market, investing into farms. These are all alternative ways of investment. Yes or no? So, three types of investment vehicles we have understood. Number one is real estate investment trust. Number two is infrastructure investment trust. And number three is alternative investment funds. These are regulated by SEBI. These are called as recognized investment vehicles. Now let's come to the next type of investment vehicle. Venture capital fund registered as SEBI is not considered as investment vehicle. Now people tell me the three types of investment vehicle we understood. That was real estate investment trust, infrastructure, and then alternative investment funds. Now why do people invest in these types of funds? To expect a long-term stable income. Yes or no? Now, what is the meaning of venture capital fund? I collect money from my investors. I invest into startups. Now, people tell me, will all startups flourish? No. Some startups may flourish. Some startups may fail. So, can I expect a long-term stable income? No. There is no possibility. Yes or no, people? Hence, it is not considered as an investment vehicle by SEBI. Yes or no, people? Very easy. Okay. Now, last type of way in which a person resident outside India can hold foreign investment. That is conversion of debt into equity. People, I don't have to explain this. Okay. Still, I will tell you. A foreign lender, if he converts 50 crores worth of compulsory convertible debentures into equity shares of OYO, it will be considered as under FDI. Simple, people, convertible debentures, convertible into equity shares, it will be considered as foreign investment. Yes or no? So, equity shares held by a foreign investor resulting from the conversion of debt instruments will be counted toward the sectoral cap applicable to foreign investment. Yes or no, people? Very, very easy. Perfect. Now, let's come to the next topic, and that is what are the prohibited sectors for foreign direct investment. Okay, so people, now let's read this. Now how many sectors are there where prohibited? It is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Okay, very easy. I will tell you the logic behind why these rules are made. Okay, number one is lottery business. A US company cannot invest into Kerala lottery. Tell me the reason, people. Government does not want to promote gambling or speculative activities. Yes or no? That is the number one reason why lottery business is not allowed under FDI. Number two is, people, gambling and betting. Same reason. A US casinos or UK casinos cannot invest into Goa casinos. Very easy. Chalo. Number three is chit funds. So chit fund. What is the meaning of chit fund, people? It is where a group of people will come together. Everyone contributes a certain amount of money. The one whose name comes by lucky draw, that person will take all the money, and this keeps on rotating. Yes or no, people? So chit fund is prohibited, but NRI and OCI can invest into chit funds, but they cannot take this money out of India. Yes or no, people? Except for investment by NRIs and OCIs on a non-repatriation basis. Now, FDI is prohibited in chit funds. NRIs and OCIs can invest in chit funds, but on a non-repatriation basis. Funds cannot be taken out of India. Very easy, people. That's it. Now, the important question is, what is the difference between NRIs and OCIs? NRIs are persons who have moved out of India. OCIs have not come in India at all, but they have got Indian roots. Yes or no? Their grandparents, their great-grandparents have been Indian citizens. So, we can say that NRIs are more Indian than OCIs. So, chit funds, it is completely prohibited, but NRIs and OCIs can invest, but they cannot take this money out of India. Very easy. Next, people, Nidhi Company. So people tell me, Nidhi Company is formed for the purpose of promoting saving habits among its members. So people, if suddenly they receive such huge amount of investment, will they be able to manage that much amount of money? No. Okay, it will unnecessarily lead to super commercialization. Hence, government has prohibited FDI in the companies. Okay, now next people, very important, very interesting concept, and that is trading in transferable development rights. Sir, what is the meaning of transferable development rights? Okay, now comes a very important topic. So TDR. So people, TDR means what? I have the right to construct my property in a certain area. The right I can buy and sell. I will give you one example. Government wants to widen a road, and for that purpose he needs some part of your land. Government wants to widen the road. For that purpose he requires your land. So instead of paying you the money, what the government gives you is, government gives you a special certificate that allows you to build the extra land that government has taken away from you, where you can build this extra land somewhere else. Special certificate that allows you to build extra floors on another property, or you can sell this right to construct a property so somebody else in return of money. So basically, government has taken away your land. In return, government has given you a special certificate. Yes or no? Government has given a special certificate, a permit that you can construct a property in this premise. Yes or no? Now this right can be transferred to anybody else for cash, and that is called as transferable development rights, where foreign investment is completely prohibited. Very easy. Okay. Now, next is real estate business or construction of farmhouses. Also, over here, foreign investment is completely prohibited. Now, people, what is the meaning of real estate business? Real estate business means for people buying and selling of land. Now, people, if foreigners invest into real estate properties, foreign investors are dealing into real estate business, don't you think the price of land will exorbitantly increase to a very large extent? Yes or no? And number two, if we allow foreign people to invest into real estate, now people tell me, do you think the planning will be very properly planned? This is normally building looks like. Suddenly, this building has received foreign investment. This building will be super tall, another building will be super tall, and then rest of the building will be super small. Why this is happening? Because over here they have received foreign investment. Now, don't you think, people, don't you think this type of structure will completely disturb the urban planning? Yes or no? Will it look properly? Will it look good? No. For that reason, foreign investment is completely prohibited in real estate business, where you cannot buy or sell land, and farmers also it is completely prohibited, because normally farmhouses are used for wrong purposes. So over there, foreign investment is completely prohibited. Now there are exceptions where foreign investment is allowed, even though it is real estate. Let's understand. Number one is, people, development of townships. What is the meaning of township, people? Township is an area where every single thing is properly already planned. Where will hospitals come? Where will schools be built? Where will commercial properties be located? Every single thing is properly planned. How will it look? Where it will be located? Every single thing is properly planned. So over here, even if we receive foreign investment, it is not going to distort, it is not going to disturb the urban planning. And that is the reason why, people, if it is a township, it is completely allowed. Okay. Now number two is, people, development of residential or commercial premises. If you are constructing land, if you are constructing anything, residential premises for living and working purposes, that is completely allowed. Okay. Next is infrastructure projects like roads and bridges, allowed. And number four is real estate investment trust, it is allowed. Now, people, can you tell me the basic reason why investment is allowed over here? The reason is, if by receiving the foreign money, the economy is getting developed, in a good way, it is allowed. The economy is not getting developed, it is not allowed. This is the main reason why foreign investment is not allowed in certain types of real estate properties, and it is allowed in certain types of properties. Very easy. So, two things I will again repeat. Trading in TDRs, foreign investment is completely prohibited. Yes or no? Number two, if foreign money is received for buying and selling of land, it is completely prohibited, or construction of farmhouses, it is completely prohibited. Then where is foreign investment is allowed? Number one, it is properly planned township, it is allowed. Number two is if you are developing residential or commercial premises, it is allowed because it is development. And number three is infrastructure projects, because government requires development of infrastructure, for that they require foreign investment, it is allowed. And number four is real estate investment trust is also allowed, okay, because it is regulated by SEBI. Very easy, people. Chalo. Now remaining 7, 8, 9, 10. 7 is manufacturing of cigars, cheroots, cigarillos, cigarettes of tobacco, tobacco substitutes, not allowed, because government wants to promote, government wants to make sure that they are taking care of the health of the people. Yes or no? Tobacco is harmful, it is high public risk. Next is activities or sectors not open to private sector investment. Atomic energy, defense, these are sectors which are not allowed foreign investment. Now next is, people, investment by citizens of Bangladesh, Pakistan or entities incorporated in Bangladesh or Pakistan, not allowed because of geopolitical concerns. Now last is investment by Pakistani citizens or entities. Now you know the reasons, I don't have to tell you, it is not allowed. So 7 areas where foreign investment is not allowed. Number 1 is lottery business. Number 2 is gambling and betting. Number 3 is chit fund, but NRIs and OCIs can invest, but they cannot take this money out of India. 4th is Nidhi companies, it is allowed. Number 5 is trading in TDR, it is not allowed. 6th is real estate business or construction farmhouse, it is not allowed, but 4 areas where it is allowed. Number 1 is development of townships. Number 2 is development of residential commercial premises. Number 3 is infrastructure projects. Number 4 is real estate investment trust. It is allowed because it is regulated by SEBI. Next is manufacturing of cigarettes, cigarillos and all, not allowed. Activity sectors not open to private investment, not allowed. Investment by citizens of Bangladesh or Pakistan or entities incorporated in Bangladesh or Pakistan, not allowed because of geopolitical concerns. And last is investment by Pakistani citizens or entities. Very easy, people. That's it. Okay. Now let's come to capital instruments in the context of FDI. So if a foreign person resident outside India wants to invest into capital instruments, what all ways can he invest? Let's understand. Number 1 is, people, equity shares, debentures, preference shares, share warrants, fully convertible debentures, fully convertible preference shares. Now, what is the meaning of preference shares? Preference shares are those shares which does not carry voting rights. Share warrants, what is the meaning of share warrants, people? Share warrant is basically, if I am giving you a share warrant, if I am Reliance, if I am giving you share warrants, I am basically giving you the right to purchase the shares of Reliance at a future date at a predetermined price. Price is already fixed, date is already fixed. Okay, that is called as share warrants. Next is fully convertible debentures, debentures which are convertible into equity shares. And last is fully convertible preference shares, preference shares convertible into equity shares. Very easy, people. That's it. Now comes a very, very important point. This is my gut feeling that in your exam, this question will be definitely asked. Payment of capital instruments. So people, when a foreign investor buys partly paid up shares in an Indian company, okay, minimum 25% of the total consideration he has to pay upfront, which means what? If he is buying the shares of Indian company where the price of one share is 100 rupees, he has to pay 25 rupees minimum upfront. Remaining 75 rupees he has to bring in India within how many months? Within 12 months from the date of issue. Very easy. So 25% upfront you have to contribute immediately. Remaining money you have to bring in India within 12 months. Very easy, people. Now next is entry route. Automatic route, government route. If it is automatic route, there is no government approval required. Example is e-commerce, logistics, IT services, renewable energy, if you are investing, no government approval is required. But if if a French defense company is purchasing 80% of Indian drone manufacturer, approval is required. If you are a French company, defense company, if you are acquiring 80% of Indian drone manufacturer, you have to take the approval of the government. Very easy. And that is what we call it as government route. Requires prior approval of government, like defense. Very easy. So there are two routes. Number one is automatic route, where no government approval is required. And number two is government route, where government approval is required. Example is defense. Very easy, people. That's it. Next, people, sectoral caps on foreign investment. Basically, people, general rule, automatic route. General rule tells you how much investment is allowed. Okay, how much investment is allowed. Basically, if it is manufacturing, 100% is allowed. If it is banking, you cannot invest 100%. So general route answers to the question how much FDI is allowed, and automatic route answers to the question, do you require government approval to invest? So foreign investment is allowed up to 100% in sectors not listed as restricted or prohibited in regulation 16 of FEMA. Yes or no? So over here 100% FDI is allowed if it is a sector not restricted or prohibited by FEMA. Automatic route, foreign investment can flow automatically in non-restricted sectors. Very easy, people. That's it. Now, people, two topics, very, very important. Okay, this will definitely come in your exam. Okay, let's read this, people. What is the minimum capitalization requirement? People, first of all, tell me why this rule has been made. This rule has been made only to make sure that the person resident outside India is really serious about investing into the sector, and that is why this minimum capitalization requirement rule is made. If you are really serious, you have to bring in minimum this much amount of money. Yes or no? Let's see this. Now, required in some sectors where minimum cap is required for foreign investment, to make sure that foreign investors are really serious. Now, number two, what is counted towards minimum cap requirement? What is not counted towards minimum cap requirement? Let's understand. Face value of shares will be counted, plus premium on shares will also be counted. We'll give you an example. Let's say an investor buys 1 crore shares, where one share's face value is 10 rupees. So total investment is, people, how much? 10 crores. It is counted towards minimum capitalization requirement. Now, the shares are issued at premium, let's say 15 rupees, 10 plus 5, total 15 rupees will be considered under minimum cap requirement. Now, the important question is, what will not be considered under minimum cap requirement? Amount paid above the original issue price when the shares are resold. Which means what, people? I will give you an example. So, face value is 10 rupees, premium is 90 rupees. So, total paid up per share is 100 rupees. So, entire 100 will be counted towards minimum capitalization requirement. Now, let's see what is not counted. Amount paid above original issue price during resale between the investors. Foreign investor A buys the shares for 100 rupees. Later, he sells it for 160 rupees. The 60 rupees will not be counted towards minimum capitalization requirement. Face value, premium is counted. If you are selling the shares at a higher value, the difference is not counted towards minimum cap requirement. Very easy, people. That's it. Nothing rocket science, people, in this. Okay. So, now, foreign investment in NBFCs. Let's understand what is the rule talking about. Number one is, if investee company is an NBFC, people, the one who invests is called an investor. The one who receives investment is called as investee. Okay. If the company is a NBFC, if the investee company then NBFC. The company receiving the foreign investment is NBFC. You don't require the government approval. Tell me reason. The reason is it is already regulated by RBI. You don't require to comply with the government additional conditions. So no government approval is required. Now, if the investee company is not an NBFC, you will require government approval. We'll give you an example. If a fintech startup gives small loans, if foreign investment is required in that fintech startup, it will require the approval of the government. Very easy, people. That's it. So 3 points we understood under sectoral caps on foreign investment. Number 1 is general rule, automatic rule, minimum cap requirement. 4th is foreign investment in NBFC. Very, very easy, people. Okay. Let me know in the comment section how are you liking this chapter. Okay, people. Chalo. I will begin with the next topic. Now, permitted investments by a person resident outside India. If a person resident outside India wants to invest in the shares or capital instruments of an Indian company, what all possible, what all permitted ways are there? Let's understand. So people, there are 10 ways. Among those 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 is very, very easy. And 8 is 8, 9, 10 is miscellaneous. Okay, let's read this. Capital instruments of an Indian company. I'm not talking about listed company. No, it's just an Indian company. So if a US investor buys 50 crores equity shares in Swiggy, it will be considered as capital instruments of an Indian company. Okay, now let's come to listed Indian company. Capital instruments of a listed Indian company. Let's take an example. BlackRock is purchasing 2% of shares in Infosys through NSE. It will be considered as capital instruments of listed Indian company. Yes or no? Now, what is the meaning of NSE, people? Tell me. Raising finance from capital markets, IPO, NSE, National Stock Exchange. So, if BlackRock purchases 2% of Infosys through NSE, it will be allowed. Next is third. Capital instruments of listed Indian companies, but by whom? NRIs and OCIs. NRIs are more Indian than OCIs. So NRIs and OCIs can buy or sell the shares of listed company with the option that they can take the money to their home country. I will give you an example. NRI OCI in Canada buys 10 lakh equity shares of Tata Motors. Later they sell the shares. They can take this money to their home country. Yes or no, people? Very easy. And that is what we call it as repatriation basis. Perfect. Now, capital instruments or contribution to LLP or a firm by NRI and OCIs. So, NRIs and OCIs can buy shares or invest in LLPs or firms, but funds cannot be taken outside India if it is of LLP or firm. Okay. Example, NRI invest 20 lakh shares in his cousin's LLP bakery business in Chennai. He cannot send the profits abroad. Always remember this, people. Okay. If it's a listed Indian company, he can take this money to their home country. But if it is LLP or firm, the money has to stay in India. Okay. Now, other securities, people, what all other ways are there? Corporate bonds, government bonds, treasury bills. These are all long-term money for government and corporate projects. Okay. Next is investment in LLPs, not by NRIs and OCI, but by person resident outside India. Foreign investors can invest in LLPs. Now, FVCI. What is meaning of FVCI? Foreign venture capital investment can invest in India. Like, let's say Silicon Valley can invest into a Bengaluru-based AI startup. Then people, investment in investment vehicles is also allowed. Issue of depository receipts is also allowed. And last is Indian depository receipts is also allowed. So 10 permitted ways of investment. Tell me, people, quickly tell me. Number 1 is capital instruments of a Indian company, be it unlisted or listed. Number 2 is capital instruments of an listed Indian company. Yes or no, people? Then third is capital instruments of a listed Indian company, but by whom? NRIs and OCIs. Can they take the money out of India? Yes. Fourth is capital instruments or contribution to LLP or a firm. Now, can they? They means what, people? NRIs and OCIs. Can they take this money out of India? Not allowed. Then people, other securities, investment in LLPs, foreign venture capital investment. Then people, investment in investment vehicles, issuance of deposit receipts, issuance of Indian depository receipts. Very easy, people. That's it. Okay. People, just 1 second. Perfect. Sure. Now next, acquisition through bonus or right issue. Yes, people. Now this is a very easy concept. You already have studied this. What is the meaning of right issue? What is the meaning of bonus issue? Right issue are those issue where existing shareholders are given shares at a discount is what we call it as a right issue. Now, what is the meaning of bonus issue? Bonus issue is where existing shareholders are given shares at free of cost. Yes or no? So over here, if you are a foreign investor, if you receive shares via right issue or bonus issue, or let's say ESOP or sweat equity, it is completely allowed. Very easy. Now, what is the meaning of ESOP and sweat equity, people? Let's say I have started a company and Mark Zuckerberg has significantly contributed in my company. So in return, I give him sweat equity or ESOP. Very easy. Chalo. Now next is, people, very beautiful concept, and that is issuance of convertible notes. Now people, what is the meaning of convertible notes? These are loans that can later be convertible into equity shares. Now the rule is minimum 25 lakh rupees should be invested into convertible notes by a person resident outside India. Let's read this. A loan issued by a company that can later be convertible into equity shares. The reason is, people, you can get faster funding without diluting your equity shares, because right now it's a loan. After a certain point of time, it's going to be convertible into equity shares. So, is my equity shares being diluted? No. So, no need to decide share valuation at all, because it's a loan. Now, foreign investors should invest 25 lakhs in convertible notes issued by Indian startups. Very easy. You have to follow the FEMA laws. That's it. Okay. Chalo. Now, next is, if you are a foreign citizen, if you're a person resident outside India and you receive shares because of merger, demerger, amalgamation. Now tell me, people, what is the meaning of merger, demerger, amalgamation? I have taught you this in competition laws. Merger means what? Two companies coming together, one company stop to exist, the remaining company continues to exist. Yes or no? That is called as merger. Now what is the meaning of amalgamation? Two companies coming together, both the companies stop to exist and a new company is formed. Yes or no? And demerger is when company splits into two companies. Now because of these corporate actions, if you receive shares being a person resident outside India, that's also completely allowed. So merger, demerger, amalgamation, foreign shareholders of the original companies can receive shares in the new company subject to compliance. Now the important question is, the company which I was talking about, if it is regulated by government, if it is not open to private sector investment, and because of the corporate action, if you receive shares of a defense company, if you receive shares of a media company, you have to take the government's approval. Yes or no? Very easy, people. That's it. So let's take what all things we have covered. See, people, a US investor gives 50 lakh to a Delhi-based AI startup through a convertible note. After 2 years, when startup raises money, this note will be later convertible into equity shares. Okay. So let's take now what all we have covered till now. So we have covered important provisions, difference between FDI, FPI, how can you hold foreign investment, prohibited sectors, capital instruments, sectoral caps, permitted investments by persons in outside India, acquisition to right issue, bonus issue, issue of convertible notes, merger, demerger, amalgamation. Now remaining 3 miscellaneous topics are there. Very easy. Quickly we are going to cover. Okay. Chalo people. Now, calculation of total foreign investment of Indian companies. Let's see. So people, basically, let's say Flipkart. Flipkart is an Indian based company. Flipkart has invested 100 crores in Myntra. Okay. Both the Indian companies, will foreign investment will even come into the picture? No. But the problem is Flipkart has already received foreign investment by Walmart. Flipkart has already received foreign investment by Walmart. Now people, is this 100 crore that I am giving to Myntra, is it 100% mine? No. 60% Walmart's own. That means 60% that I am investing into Flipkart, investing into Myntra, is a foreign investment. Now, what are the methods of calculating foreign investment? Let's understand this in detailed manner. Okay. So people, now number 1 is conversion of debt into equity. Any equity shares obtained by a foreign person through conversion of debt instruments will be counted as part of foreign investment. We already know this, people. Loans, debt instruments, if you are converting into equity shares, it will be counted. Number 2 is, people, FCCB. What is the meaning of FCCB? Foreign currency convertible bonds. Okay. Bonds which are given in foreign currency, they can be later convertible into equity shares of Indian company. Yes or no? Foreign currency convertible bonds and depository receipts, these will not be considered. Let's see. These are not counted in the total foreign investment. Can you tell me the reason why, people? Reason is simple. I told you, is my Reliance shares going out of India in the hands of a foreign investor? No. Only the depository receipts is going out of India, not the shares. If the shares are not going out of India, the shares are with the custodian of India, then we will not count it towards foreign investment. Yes or no, people? Is my shares directly going to anybody's hands? No. Only the underlying shares are with me. Only deposit receipts which are representing the shares are going out of India. Okay. Not counted. Underlying shares are with the custodian, not it is directly in the hands of foreign investor. Hence, foreign currency convertible bonds and depository receipts will not be counted towards foreign investment. Yes or no, people? Very easy. Chalo. Now is a very important concept that I gave you example of Flipkart, Myntra, Walmart, and that is downstream investment. Let's understand this. People, a downstream investment occurs when a company, Flipkart, or a subsidiary invest in another companies. Flipkart investing in Myntra, it's a downstream investment. Okay. Foreign investment in the company making the downstream investment. Who is making the downstream investment? Flipkart is making the downstream investment. Now, Flipkart, if it has already received foreign investment from Walmart, it will be counted. Simple. Now, third, if the company making the downstream investment holds foreign investment through portfolio investment, Walmart is owning shares in Flipkart through portfolio investment. This investment as of 31st March of the previous financial year. Why this date has been used, people? Because if we are investing through portfolio, it keeps on changing. Let's say if I have invested into Reliance through stock exchange, it will keep on changing. I will buy, sell. So one shareholding percentage cannot be taken. Hence, we take the last year's 31st March shareholding into consideration. Okay, is used for the calculating of foreign investment in the investing company because FPI fluctuates daily. I will give you an example. Amazon India is a foreign owned company. If it is investing 50 crores in a logistics startup, it will be considered as downstream investment. Okay. Now, Flipkart is investing 100 crores in Flipkart. 100 crores in Myntra. Flipkart is investing 100 crores in Myntra. Okay. So, Now the important question is, Walmart already owns 60% of Flipkart. That means, can we say among these 100 crores that Myntra has received from Flipkart, 60% is FDI? Yes or no? Because whatever money that Flipkart has invested in Myntra, 60% belongs to Walmart. Yes or no? So 100 crores, 60%, 60 crores, Myntra. So Myntra is holding foreign investment. Simple, people. Okay? Chalo. Now, if I talk about wholly owned subsidiary company, for a wholly owned subsidiary company, the foreign investment received by a subsidiary is limited to the foreign investment received by the parent company, making the downstream investment. Same logic, people, same logic. For a wholly owned subsidiary company, let's say Myntra, the foreign investment received by the subsidiary company is limited to the foreign investment received by the parent company, that is Flipkart, making the downstream investment. So, if Flipkart is investing into Myntra, whatever money that Flipkart has received by a foreign investor, it will be considered under the calculation while we calculate the foreign investment received by the wholly owned subsidiary company. It is, people, same principle is used over here. Okay, chalo. See, people, company A parent has invested into company B, wholly owned subsidiary company. But the problem is company A is owned 40% by a foreign company, hence we can call it as 40% of company B is foreign owned. Very easy, people. Logic is simple. You have to find out, you have to ask your question, you have to ask yourself one question. The company, the parent company, just invested in subsidiary company, does the money 100% belongs to the parent company? No. So whatever percentage belongs to the foreign investor, it will be considered under calculation. Okay, very easy, people. That's it. Next is conditions for exit for foreign investment in India. Now let's take an example of Tata, Starbucks. Okay, now exit from a joint venture. Let's read this. The Indian partner has the first option to buy the shares if a foreign investor wants to exit. Which means what? Tata Starbucks is a joint venture. Now Starbucks wants to exit India. So they have to sell these shares. Now Starbucks cannot directly sell these shares to foreign investors. Starbucks first, it has to offer to Tata, its Indian partner, before they reach out to foreign investors. If the Indian partner refuses, the foreign investor can sell to a third party. Very easy. Now pricing of shares. For unlisted companies, the pricing of shares is to be arrived by following the pricing guidelines. Yes or no? They have to appoint an independent valuer if it is an unlisted company. If it's a listed company, they have to follow which laws? Tell me. SEBI laws they have to follow. Very easy, people. Okay. Now, transfer of capital instruments. So until now we understood, if a foreign joint venture, if it's a case of Starbucks, Tata, if Starbucks wants to exit, they have to first offer these shares to Tata, its Indian partner, before they reach out to foreign investors. If Tata purchases, that's fine. If Tata does not purchases, then only they can sell it to foreign investor. The first right of refusal will go to Tata, and the pricing guideline has to be followed. If it's a listed company, SEBI guidelines has to be followed. If it's an unlisted company, you have to appoint an independent valuer. Very easy, people. That's it. Now transfer of capital instruments. 1, 2, 3. So when foreign investment is involved, FEMA rules have to be followed. We know, people, Indian companies with foreign investment must follow specific rules for transferring shares. So if you are transferring the shares, let's say Starbucks is transferring shares, what all guideline it has to follow? If it is transferring shares to Tata, what guidelines they have to follow? If they are transferring the shares to a foreign investor like BlackRock, what are the guidelines they have to follow? Let's understand. So if you are transferring the shares to a foreign resident, no pricing guidelines. You have to only file a form called as FCTRS when you transfer the shares to a person resident outside India. So no pricing guidelines for transfers to someone living outside India, but reporting must be made. Now people, if both are foreign persons, Indian regulation don't requires control pricing. Which means what people? If Starbucks is selling the shares to somebody else and that is a foreign investor, Indian pricing guidelines will not apply. Yes or no people? Is Indian money going out of India? No. If an Indian resident purchases, then it makes sense. If the Indian resident is not purchasing the shares from the Starbucks, then the pricing guidelines will not apply. Yes or no people? Because the money is not going out of India. Now, let's see if the shares are transferred, if Starbucks transfers these shares to Reliance, to an Indian resident, then people, Reliance is paying Indian money. Yes or no? That means Indian money is going out of India, and over here, pricing guidelines will apply. Why? To prevent selling at a cheap prices and moving wealth out of India in a very, very disproportionate format. So pricing guidelines must be followed for transfers to someone living in India. Very easy. So whenever a foreign investment is allowed, they have to follow FEMA laws. So if you are transferring shares to a foreign resident, no pricing guidelines will be allowed because money is not going out of India. Okay? Because money is coming out in India. Now, if you are transferring shares to a Indian resident, pricing guidelines will apply because money is going out of India. Very simple. Okay. Now, exemption for certain companies, same point. If an Indian company is controlled by a foreign investor, pricing and reporting guidelines may not apply. Yes or no? Because all the money belongs to them. Yes or no, people? Perfect. Now, last topic, and then we are done. Chalo, people. Now, FEMA compliance requirements. So, when a foreign investor sends money to buy shares of an Indian company, the company must follow a 3-step timeline. Which means what? If I am an Indian company, if I am receiving money from foreign, I have to follow FEMA laws. I have to report it to RBI. How much money have I received? What is the value at which I have given the shares? When did I give the shares? Is my sector restricted? Every single thing I have to report to RBI via which form? FCGPR form. So timeline. If FDI amount, money received, FDI amount must come in India through an authorized dealer bank, which we have already studied in salient features of FEMA. Share allotment. Shares must be allotted within how many days? Within 60 days of receiving the money. Now FCGPR filing must be done within 30 days of allotment. So within 60 days, my share should be allotted. Within 30 days of allotment, I have to file FCGPR form to RBI that I have received XYZ amount of investment. Value is this. This is the registered valuer certificate. Every single thing I have been complied with. Yes or no? Now, procedure. People, you have to just read this. There's a definite possibility that in exam question will be asked. You have to log into RBI's forms portal where normally we report these FCGPR, FCTRS forms. Select SMF, single master form, FCGPR, you have to select, you have to upload all the documents. Then people have to submit all the documents which should be verified by a authorized dealer bank sent to RBI. Yes or no, people? Perfect. Now, the moment you have received money, you have to follow these guidelines. Now, you have to report to RBI regularly. How much money have you received? You have to report. Every company receiving FDI must create and maintain an entry master to show a record that we have in our history, we are holding XYZ amount of foreign investment. You have to report that this is the amount of investment we are holding. FCGPR is for reporting that we have received the investment. Now, this is for to tell them that we are holding this much amount of foreign investment. It shows capital structure, foreign shareholding percentage, past FDI transactions. You have to update it compulsorily whenever new FDI is received, shares are transferred, capital structure changes. Without a correct entity master, FCGPR cannot be filed. Companies treated as non-compliant under FEMA. So you have to make all these reporting to RBI. Then only you can receive foreign investment. Yes or no, people? Now, if you don't comply with these rules, if you don't file FCTRS, if you don't file FCGPRS, what are the consequences? Company becomes FEMA non-compliant, requires to pay late fees. Until late fees is paid, three things will happen to you. FDI is treated as non-reported. You cannot receive any new FDI. Bank may block any further transactions or remittances. Yes or no, people? Company cannot file any new FCGPR form. It will be called as a defaulting entity, can attract penalties. It will create issues during due diligence, fundraising, stat audits. So do you understand the importance of filing FCGPR and entity master form, people? It's very, 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 very important. So people, we are done with our FDI sub chapter. Okay. Now, these are the expected questions that will definitely be asked in your exam. Number one is, explain the key provisions of FDI in India, including criteria for FDI, sectoral caps, and the process of payment for the capital instruments. You have to tell the criteria: FDI, unlisted company, listed company, continuation of FDI, sectoral caps. You have to tell payment of capital instruments, 25% upfront, remaining 12 months we have to bring in the money, entry routes, automatic route, government route. All these points you have to learn and mention in your answer. Now next is, discuss the sectors where FDI is prohibited. People, if you ask me, this question will be definitely come in an exam. This is my gut feeling. Okay. All these: lottery business, gambling, chit fund, Nidhi company, TDRs, real estate, manufacturing of tobacco, atomic energy, railway operations, exemptions. All these points you have to compulsorily mention. I've also told you the logic behind why the laws have been made. Yes or no, people? Next is, discuss the conditions for exit from a joint venture in India. Right of first refusal. You have to give the first right to sell the shares to Indian. Yes or no, people? Then pricing of shares, transfer of shares. All these things should be followed. People, over here we are done with the expected question. Now, now what we're going to do is, we're going to look at the past year's question paper. People, discuss permitted investment by resident outside India. This is which attempt paper? This is the attempt of December 23. Permitted investment. Remember, people, remember? Wait, I will show you. People, permitted investment. For 7 marks, this question was asked. 7 marks, people. It is too much. Easily you can score exemption paper. Easily. Next is, state the restrictions on foreign exchange, holding of foreign exchange. We are already done with this in salient features of FEMA. Next is, state the person eligible to claim benefits under LRS. It is also done. The next is, explain the compliance requirements under FEMA in relation to FCGPR, maintaining entity master. So people, whatever last topic that we have studied, that you have to file FCGPR form within how many days, you have to update entity master, otherwise what are the consequences? Just learn it, write it in the exam, that's it. I've told the logic behind why the laws have been made, and we are done with everything, people. Okay? So I will end this session over here, people. If you have got any doubts with respect to any topic, be it super difficult doubt, be it extremely easy doubt, just make sure that you are dropping all your doubts in the YouTube comment section. Okay? If you just go through my videos, a lot of my students have asked me doubts. Just look at the way how I have resolved the doubts. Okay? So whenever you ask me any doubt, I'm going to make sure that all your doubts are resolved in the best ever possible manner. Okay? And please make sure to drop all your doubts, continue to drop all your doubts. Even if I solve your doubts, if you're not clear, again, make sure to ask those doubts. Okay? That's all from my side, people. Thank you so much for watching, and eat well, sleep well, study well. I will see you in the next one. Take care and bye bye.